Inshallah, I wanted to look at the beginning of Surah An-Nisa because we're going to begin, inshallah, with the huquq in marriage, which are the rights. And for every right, there's obviously a corresponding responsibility, because whenever you have a right, you have somebody who's responsible somewhere for fulfilling the right. So if I have a haqq, something that's due to me, who is it due from? For instance, it's a haqq that Allah provide for you. That's a haqq of the servant. But the responsibility also, Allah has taken that responsibility, but it's a haqq of Allah that He's worshipped. So whenever you have a haqq, you have a mas'uliyah that goes with it. I mean, you can't find a haqq that doesn't have some corresponding responsibility. So with the huquq in marriage, you'll always have the haqq and then the responsibility that goes with it. And it's one of the short-sighted aspects of Western civilization, is that the focus has always been on huquq, on rights, and not on responsibilities. In Surah An-Nisa, which is a Madani surah, and everybody knows that the chapters are divided into Madani and Mekki, which is a division related to time, not place. So the Meccan chapters are chapters that were revealed before the Hijrah, even if some of the verses were revealed outside of Mecca, and the Medinan chapters are revealed after the Hijrah, even though some of them were actually revealed in Mecca. So that's the differentiation between Mekki and Madani. And you also have Mekki in Madani. So you have Meccan ayahs in Madani surah. So it's a very interesting phenomenon. And the importance of it is the shift that occurs after the Hijrah, and also related to Nasikh and Mansukh. If you want to know if something has precedent over, one verse has precedent over another verse, if there's any type of outward disagreement between the two verses, then you'd have to look which one was revealed first. And Imam Ali radiallahu anhu actually had a Quran that was the ayahs as they were revealed, but it was lost. But he actually wrote the entire Quran out in accordance with the actual time and place that the ayahs were revealed. The next thing is that a chapter, the word that it's called is mentioned somewhere in the verse. So this chapter is called Surah An-Nisa, and the other thing about it is the chapter headings are always about things that Allah has exalted. Even if it's the ankabut, the spider, or the ant, there's something exalted in it. And Allah says that He doesn't, لا يستحي أن يضرب مثلا ما بعوضة فما فوقها. That Allah does not restrain from even using a gnat as an example. So anything that Allah has named a surah after it, because it has something, some very important meaning here. Now, this chapter begins Ya Ayyuhan Nas, and generally that is a Meccan indication, even though it's not always, but generally that is a Meccan indication, because the Quran generally addresses everybody in Mecca. And then in Medina, it usually addresses the believers specifically. And this is the phenomenon of moving from the da'wah phase of inviting people to the deen, and then once a group has come into the deen, then it becomes incumbent upon them to actually practice the deen. So the Ya Ayyuhan Nas is to everybody. Ya Ayyuhal Ladina Amanu is to those who believe. So this begins with Ya Ayyuhan Nas, and it's important because when Allah says Ittaqu Rabbakum, Ya Ayyuhan Nas Ittaqu Rabbakum, that He's talking to everybody, not just the believers, because the first degree of taqwa is taqwa shirk. So that is the first level of taqwa. And taqwa is waqayatun nafs mimma yadurruha fil akhirah. That's what taqwa means. It's the protecting the self from anything that will harm it in the next life. That's what taqwa is. So when you say, have taqwa of Allah, what it means, guard yourself by being obedient and within the parameters that Allah has delineated for you, in order that you don't harm yourself in the next world. And this is a cause-effect relationship. In other words, if you do this, this happens. It's not that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has emotions. Allah is not petulant. He doesn't get angry like human beings. They're not, that's all anthropomorphic. And when you say the ghadab of Allah, the ghadab of Allah is His adhab. And the adhab is something He created. And it's as simple as that. Whether people believe it or not, it doesn't matter. Whatever you believe, if it's congruous with reality, then your belief is a sound belief, right? But if it's not congruous with reality, then your belief is irrelevant. It's a false belief. So a true belief is a belief that is congruous with reality. And given the fact that we don't know all of reality, there are beliefs, there's things we don't know that exist, and we don't even know them. There's even creatures that we haven't discovered on this planet out there. There's animals we don't even know. There's things in the bottom of the ocean, they don't know what's down there. So you can say, I don't believe there's any creatures down at the bottom of the ocean. If they're down there, your belief does not alter the reality of it. So if I say I don't believe in a punishment from God, it doesn't alter the reality of the punishment if it is indeed true. So he's talking to everybody. Ittaqu rabbakum. And Rabb is used here. Ittaqullah is used. And ittaqu rabbakum. Rabbakum, Rabb is closer to the human being than Allah, because Allah is a transcendent name. It has no immanence in the world. There's nothing in the world that when you say Allah, you can say that you have an understanding of that. I mean, there's verses in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is fariqul habbi wan nawa, that He's the splitter of the date seed and the stone, and that is Allah that does that. But there's no attribute that can be associated with Allah. Whereas Rabb is something that you can understand in the world, because Rabb is, you have Rabbul Bayt, which is the father, Rabbatul Bayt, which is the mother. And Rabb, some of them say it comes from Rabia, which is to grow. And Rabba means to nurture or to cause to grow. So that Allah is the one that nurtures or sustains or helps. And that's the loving relationship that Allah has with His creation. So that's why you have in the Surah An-Nas, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. It begins with رَبِّ النَّاسِ, which is children. That's what children understand. It's like your parents. And then Malikin Nas, which is when you move into adulthood, you become responsible now. So Malik is the one who, his authority realms in the world. So now you're in the realm of laws. Children aren't in the realm of laws. They're in the realm of tarbiyah. You're nurturing them to prepare them for the next stage of consciousness, which is that you're responsible. And that's milik. And then you have ilahin nas. That's the last phase, which is going beyond. It's seeing that Allah is more than just an authority. You see, Allah is more than just the giver of laws. That you don't worship Allah because He is the Malik. You worship Him because He's the Ilah. That's the highest stage of worship. That's over everything, because that stage of worship is the stage where you recognize that He's ahlu taqwa, that He is worthy of this maqam.